It is shown in the movie that a newly married couple brings a male robot to their house to make their work easier, but after some time they start loving the human feelings inside it. In the beginning of the movie we are shown a couple named Sophie and James who are shifting things inside their house. James' financial condition is not so good, so both of them have to do all the work of their house together, whereas James' father is a big businessman of this city, but due to some reason he does not live with his father, rather he prefers to live with Sophie, and both of them are very happy with their married life. But one day James comes to know that his father has died, so all the property of his father has been transferred to his son, i.e. James. So now James will have to handle all the business of his father. Now both of them leave their old life and shift to a new life, but after moving into a new life, Sophie does not like anything because she likes to live a normal life. Along with this, she likes to do all the household work herself, and so on the very first day she fires all the servants of the house. When James comes to know about this, he comes and explains to Sophie that you should not have done this because this is a very big house and you will not be able to manage all the work of this house alone, so we need servants for this household work. But Sophie does not listen to him, and she tells him that even earlier we used to do all the work of our house by ourselves, so we do not need anyone, we can do this household work by ourselves. But James had become so busy in his father's business that he is not able to give time to Sophie. On the other hand, Sophie is also not able to manage the household work alone, so James shares his problem with one of his friends. Then his friend tells him that I have a solution to the problem. Actually, my father works in a robotic company whose owner makes such robots which look exactly like humans, so you should go there and purchase a robot. Now James reaches that company with Sophie, but Sophie is very surprised to see those robots because they look exactly like humans, so both of them go alone and start discussing whether these robots can be a threat to them in the future, but the owner of the company assures them that there is no threat to them from these robots, rather these robots will do whatever work they are asked to do. Now to convince James, the owner of the company asks a robot named Henry to lick James's shoe, so Henry does exactly what he is asked to do. Seeing this, James and Sophie believe him, so he brings Henry to his home. After bringing him home, Henry starts doing all the household work very well, so Sophie and James get a lot of help in household work. He alone does all those household works easily, which all the other servants together could not do. On the other hand, when James tries to talk to him, he replies to him in the same way as a human being, so James starts spending most of his time with him because he understands her words very well, so James starts liking him a lot. But initially Sophie did not like him, but gradually she gets very impressed by his work, so whenever James goes to office she spends the rest of her time with him. Henry also takes great care of her needs. He cares for her a lot because his programming has been done in such a way that if his master is happy, then only he will be happy. Can be considered an ideal robot. Now James and Sophie's life, which was not going very well before, but with the arrival of Henry everything becomes fine in their life. One day Sophie loves Henry and he has human feelings, then he plans to love her and he has human feelings, hearing which Sophie gets very impressed, so she starts considering Henry as a human instead of a robot. But seeing Sophie getting closer to Henry, James does not like it at all. He starts getting jealous, whereas James knows very well that Henry is not a human but he is a robot, but still he wants Sophie to stay away from him because he starts feeling insecure, so he starts explaining to Sophie in private that you should not talk to Henry the way he is a human, because the way we treat him he will also behave with us in the same way, so if you try to consider him as a human then you will have to face the consequences. If you make a mistake he will also start thinking of himself as a human being, which is not right. But Sophie does not agree with anything he says. At night when both of them are sleeping in their room, Sophie hears some sound from Henry's room, so when she goes to his room she finds out. When Sophie looks inside she finds out that Henry is not in his room. Now when Sophie comes out and looks, she finds Henry sleeping in the garden. Here Sophie notices that Henry is seeing a dream while sleeping, which is not possible for a robot. Seeing this, Sophie is very surprised, so James wakes him up and takes him inside the House. The next day the owner of the company is called to examine Henry, and after examining him he tells them that there is a technical error inside him, which is a normal thing to happen in any robot. Now when Sophie tells him that he was seeing a dream while sleeping last night, and I have noticed all this very well, then he tells her that Henry has been with you for a long time, so you have awakened some human feelings inside him, due to which he started considering himself a human, so it is possible that he must have been thinking about you last night. Now after hearing this, James gets angry at Sophie that all this has happened because of her, because she is treating him as if he is a human being. So James tells Sophie that from today onwards she will consider Henry as a robot and not a human being, but Sophie does not listen to him, due to which a lot of fights start between the two. So James goes to Henry and tells him that you should stop spending time with my wife and stay away from her. On this Henry asks him if I have done any mistake, but James tells him to stop questioning like humans and do as I say, but Henry tells this to Sophie, on which Sophie gets very angry and she leaves the house. Henry is very intelligent like a human being, so he tries to explain to James that whatever is happening in his life is his responsibility. The problem is going on, it is not my fault actually. Earlier Sophie and James used to spend a lot of time with each other, but now due to business James does not give time to Sophie, so Sophie treats Henry as a human being instead of a robot and tries to fulfill all her desires with him. Now since Sophie had left the house, James takes advantage of this and comes close to Henry and does bad things with him, but the next morning he realizes his mistake. So he calls Sophie and asks her to come back home. In the next scene we see that when Henry is massaging Sophie he comes close to her, which Sophie also likes a lot, but when he tells Sophie that he has started loving her, Sophie is very shocked and scared to hear this, so now she asks him to leave from here. Now when Sophie tells all this to James he gets very angry, so he goes to Henry's room and slaps him, and along with this he also calls the owner of his company and tells him that he is in love with her. Henry asks him to take his robot away from here, but Henry did not want to go from here, so he starts apologizing to Sophie. He tells Sophie that I apologize for whatever I have said to you, but somehow you stopped me from leaving from here. He also tells Sophie what James had done to her when she was not in this house, so both husband and wife realize their mistake, that both of them were attracted towards Henry, so now they want to correct their mistake and get rid of this robot, and they decide to live a normal life like before. Now the owner of the company comes to take Henry, but Henry does not listen to anything of the owner of the company like before, and here we come to know a big truth, that actually Henry is not a robot but he is a human being, because the owner of the company always wanted to make some such robots who is better than humans but is dedicated to his mission. He is not able to succeed in this, so he starts experimenting on humans, by which he makes them feel less of human feelings and proves that he is not a human but a machine. But when Henry comes in contact with Sophie, the human feelings inside him awaken, because he was a human after all, so he tells all these things to Sophie and James, whose words make them very angry with the owner of the company. So now they go and tell the whole truth to the police, that how the owner of the company has ruined the lives of humans, and the police takes James and Sophie with them to arrest the owner of the company, but he attacks the police, after which he was about to arrest Sophie and James too, but then Henry attacks him and steps on him with a knife, due to which he dies. After this he also stabs himself, due to which Henry also gets killed, but seeing Henry's loyalty, Sophie and James are very saddened by his death. Now a scene after a few years is shown where Sophie and James have a son whom they named Henry, because both of them did not want to forget Henry, so they named their son Henry, and the movie ends with this scene. Friends, if you liked the video then please like the video and subscribe to the channel.